and welcome to Magda Knits. My name is Magda and this is my little space on the internet where I talk about all of my knitting, yarn dyeing, yarn spinning, and sometimes also a little bit of sewing, which is going to be the case today. So if you would like to hear about my sewing adventures, then stick around. I will be talking about it at the end of this episode. If you are being very curious and you want to hear about it straight away, then I always include timestamps in my videos, so you can find those in the description down below. I feel like I'm rushing this introduction, but that's because I am absolutely boiling in this sweater, but I really wanted to wear it just to show you my finished object. So this is something that I have finished very recently, and I thought I was going to wear it just to show you how it sits on the body. So let's talk about it very quickly because I am going to boil. This is my sweater that I finished knitting very recently from my Handspun yarn. So I am super incredibly and utterly proud of it and very happy with how the yarn turned out and how the finished object turned out. So this is Celosias, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a design by Jennifer and Steingass, and it's a sweater that originally, or at least on the pictures you can see on the sample, being a short sleeve version, but I decided to knit obviously the long sleeve version. The pattern, it actually does have instructions on how to make the sleeves long, so if you want to go for the long sleeve version and if you are not quite comfortable with making those modifications yourself, those are included in the pattern as well. I finished knitting this probably on Monday or something like that. So I still have my ends hanging. I haven't washed it yet either, so I still don't know how it's going to fit after it's gone through the washing process, but I'm really hoping it is going to be okay. I have worked with this fiber before, so I have no idea what sheep breed it is. I think it's a sheep wool. I hope it's sheep wool, although I'm not entirely sure. It's just a mysterious bag of fleece that I got together with my wheel about a year ago, and I just have no idea what it is. It doesn't have any sheepy smell, so it must have been washed really well, I guess. But I have already spun with this. My very first skein was actually from this yarn, and I was knitting socks from it as well. The socks are not stretching out, so there is some memory to it. So I believe the fit is not going to change that much of this garment, which is great. In terms of durability, we'll see how that lasts, because my socks, they keep developing holes in them. But yeah, let's remember it was my first skein of yarn and the spinning wasn't great. I think I very much underplied this skein, and well, yeah, socks get a lot of abrasion, I guess much more than a sweater, so it's understandable that I am getting holes in my socks, but this hopefully is going to last much longer. I spun this into a 3-ply yarn, a traditional 3-ply, so it wasn't chain plied. I added more twist to it this time than to the socks, and yeah, because it's a 3-ply, I feel like there is a better durability to this yarn overall, so I think it's going to last. But yes, I mean, I've already said it, but I cannot say it enough. I am so happy with this sweater. It is fully in my Handspun yarn, so the main color is this mysterious yarn, or this mysterious fleece that I just told you about. The contrasting color, that's my Handspun as well. So this was fiber by, I think it's by Ashford, but I got it from my local yarn store again about a year ago. This store is called Freya Jones. If you are ever near like Aylesbury area in the UK, then I would highly recommend going there. It's a very, very lovely shop and the prices are very reasonable. So I picked up this fiber. I think it was called, the colorway was called Cinnamon, and this one was a merino and silk blend. This yarn, again, it didn't turn out perfectly because I think it might have been my second skein of yarn that I've ever spun, so it also was a little bit wonky. There were loads of thick and thin pieces. But when I was choosing colors for this sweater, it just made sense for these to go together. I didn't aim for anything with a crazy amount of contrast. I wanted something that was a little bit more subtle, something, I guess I wouldn't call it a low contrast color work, but it's not anything that's with a lot of contrast. So I felt like this was a very good combination. It was a little bit scary for me to put these two yarns together because the thickness of them felt very different, and I think I was showing you that difference in my previous episode. But it all turned out to be perfectly fine. So the way it worked out, I was holding this yarn, I can never remember like which is the more dominant color, but either way, I held it in such a way that the contrasting color was the one that was a little bit more to the front. If I was to do it the other way around, if the contrasting color yarn was going to be thinner than the main color, then the color work would just basically disappear. But because the color work section here, the contrasting color was made in a thicker yarn, it pops up a little bit more. And because of that difference in thickness, I also decided not to change the needle size when I knit color work. So in normal circumstances, I would actually go up 2 needle sizes for the color work section because of my tensioning issues. But here, this color work was done on the same needle size as the rest of the body, so that was 3.5 millimeters. That is because I felt like I am going to have excess fabric anyway because of that thickness here, and I felt like this was going to even out this whole issue with puckering that I would normally have if I was to knit everything in the same thickness of yarn. So again, I got really lucky with that because that was a bit of a gamble, and everything seems to work out perfectly fine. There is no puckering. Okay, there is tiny bit of puckering. I'm not sure if you can see it on the screen. The puckering is somehow placed in those little diamond-shaped pieces here. And that's purely because I had to catch the floats around here. So there are a couple of places within this pattern where you have to catch the floats. And because this contrasting yarn is a little bit thick, catching it by a thinner yarn was a little bit tricky in places. And yes, if you looked very closely, it is puckering just a tiny bit, but I think it has more to do with tensioning from my side rather than the yarn itself. But honestly, I am super happy with how it looks anyway, and I cannot complain. What else have I done with this sweater? So when it comes to the construction, this is a top-down sweater, and you are supposed to do the rolled neckline. This is the first time I was doing a rolled neckline, and I must say I am not a huge fan of rolled necklines. I think I prefer the look of a ribbed neck a little bit more, but I decided just to stick to the original. However, I was supposed to cast on with a smaller needle size, but my brain was unable to find this piece of information within the pattern. I don't know how I was looking because it was there. It was right there telling you which needle size you're supposed to use to cast on, but somehow my brain didn't register it. I was actively looking for this information, but I couldn't find it somehow. So I was thinking to myself, okay, if it doesn't tell me to start with a smaller needle size, then I guess you are supposed to start with the regular needle size that you're supposed to knit the rest of the body in. So that's how I proceeded. Later on I realized it was right there and it was telling you to use the smaller needle size. So I was a little bit worried about how this was going to look. And as I was knitting it, it was rolling quite a lot. So this was like quite thick sausage and I was really worried this was not going to look right. But actually, as it sits on my body, I don't really have to do anything with it. It sits perfectly fine. It's not rolling anymore. And it doesn't seem to be too wide or misshapen. It is absolutely perfect. So I got lucky with that again. This was very much a full of good coincidences, and I was very lucky with this sweater overall. But yes, this is what I did around the neckline. I was knitting the smallest size. I was knitting size A. I think the sizes are represented as letters. Overall, I was knitting the smallest size. The reason why I decided to go for the smallest size is when I looked at the dimensions of the finished garment, it just felt like it was going to fit best. I think the intention of the original design was to wear it with a little bit more positive ease, but I don't want to say oversized garments, because this isn't really oversized when you looked at the sample, but I just didn't want this to be too loose on me, so I knew that I had to go for the smaller size, and again, that was a good choice. What I did as well with this sweater, so if you remember, I might have been talking about this in my last episode, potentially. So I was talking about the issues around necklines in my sweaters. The fact that loads of my sweaters, they tend to pull back, and I feel like I've got a tent hanging at the back of my sweater. So clearly there is something not quite right with the fitting of my garments. It's just, we all have different body shapes. So one of the lovely viewers mentioned in the comments that there is another podcaster. Her podcast is called Mel Makes Stuff. I'm going to link her channel if you would like to watch her videos as well. But essentially what she tends to do, so I watched a couple of her episodes because she seems to have fitting issues as well, and she was making some modifications on some of her sweaters as well. And essentially what she does is, she did mention that she's got an issue which is a little bit maybe opposite to mine. She feels like she doesn't have enough fabric at the back. So what she does is, when she's knitting a rounded yoke, she will move the stitches off. So the place where you're supposed to split for the sleeves, she's going to always move the stitches a little bit more to the front, so she's got more fabric at the back. When I started thinking about my issues, I was thinking, okay, I feel like I have a tent at the back, and my neck tends to pull back. So I felt like I don't have, I have too much fabric at the back. So I was thinking, okay, so I need to move the stitches in the opposite direction. So I feel like I need to add a little bit more fabric to the front and a little bit less to the back. So that's how I did. Essentially, when it came to splitting the sleeves, I just moved on each side. I moved everything by 2 stitches. So overall, it's only 4 stitches, not a massive difference. But what I feel happened as a result is I ended up obviously with more fabric at the front, and it's like I don't necessarily need that fabric at the front. So it's great that I have less fabric at the back, because it seems to fit well, but then I ended up with more fabric at the front, and because I don't have a big bust, it feels like it's a little bit too much here, because it may not be as visible, but there is a bit of, I don't know, puckering, whatever you want to call it. It's not looking horrible or anything, and it kind of depends how I sit, but I think I might have just a little bit too much fabric in here. So that made me think about this whole fitting issues again, and I think what I need really is to try with my next garment, so that's maybe going to be a little bit of an experiment. I think what I need really is a little bit of waist shaping. So when I look at my sweaters where I feel that I have a tent at the back, the tent happens to be not quite here around the shoulders, but it tends to appear like lower, somewhere like below my shoulder blades. So actually I think I just need to reduce the fabric from that area, and I think it just makes sense for me to do a little bit of waist shaping, which hopefully should help with fitting. I just need to play around, and I need to experiment a little bit and see what works best for me, but hopefully I can get there. But anyway, yes, so Mel Makes Stuff, she's another podcaster, and she is talking about amending at least the shoulder area to maybe fit this, to make the yoke fit a little bit better to your body shape. So, you know, in the same way, like if you were a person that maybe has a little bit of a bigger bust, perhaps you would want to move the fabric in such a way that you've got a little bit more at the front. I think there is an episode where she's actually showing you how she measures herself. It's just that I didn't get around to watching all of her episodes, so I'm not quite sure which one it is, but she's a lovely person, and I think perhaps you can find out something very useful if you would like to check her out. Okay, I think that is all that I wanted to talk about when it comes to this project. And now I would like to show you my second finished object, and I really want to get out of this sweater because I am boiling. So let me put on a summer top that I have just finished, and then I'm going to tell you all about it. That is much better. So this is my second finished object that I would like to show you. This design is called Striped Tee by EweKnit Toronto. And I was knitting this one in a cotton yarn. It was a cotton and I think it's a cotton and polyamide blend, if I am not mistaken. It's a drops cotton light yarn, basically, that I had in my stash. And the reason why I casted this on is because, number one, I wanted another summer top. Number two, I was knitting on my handspun sweater, but then we had a heat wave of like 40 degrees here in London. It was absolutely boiling. And at that point, I had a lot of fabric already on that sweater, so keeping it on my lap was an absolute agony. So I had to put that aside, and I felt like I wanted to knit on something lighter. So casting on a new project just made an absolute sense. So I looked into my stash. I did mention to you guys before that I would like to be a little bit more mindful of my stash and try to use the yarn that I have. So I looked at what I had. I looked for cotton yarn and I found this. So that just made sense for me to cast it on. I was looking for something stripy, and then this project came along. The original yarn that was used in the sample was completely different. It wasn't a cotton blend at all. I think it might have been merino and silk blend, potentially. Well, I think it was like a woolen yarn. So the fabric was completely different. It was very flowy, it was very delicate, and I knew straight away that I was never going to achieve the same effect. But I decided to go for it anyway, just to use it as a well, just to follow the pattern and get a t-shirt from it that I was hoping it was going to fit. But I knew straight away it wasn't going to look exactly the same. I think I would love to knit it with a similar yarn blend as the original because it's so lovely. I love it. But for now I'm here with just this, which is perfectly fine. I'm super happy with how it came out. It's just a very simple t-shirt, and I just made use of the scraps that I had in my stash. So the black color is the color that I used on my summer top that I was showing you, I think 2 episodes ago, and I still had some left. And then I had this gray color in my stash as well, so I decided to use it as a contrast. The original pattern is actually showing you to knit this, or the stripes are supposed to be the same width, but I felt like I wanted to have the black color dominating the design a little bit more. So I decided to make the black stripes bigger than the gray straps. What I ended up with was losing the yarn chicken game, so unfortunately I ran out of the black yarn. I completely miscalculated or misjudged my yardage, and yeah, I had to get another ball, which was a little bit stressful because the yarn that I had, the black one that I had in my stash, was actually a very old version of the cotton light yarn, and as far as I know they changed the fiber content. So I was worried that it was going to look completely different and that it was going to have like a color difference, but it was absolutely fine. Like, you cannot tell the difference between the old and the new. I mean, at the end of the day, it's black yarn, so probably that's good as well. So then you don't really have that visibility of the dye lot color change and stuff. But yeah, so I had to get another ball to finish this project. On a side note, obviously I went to the wool warehouse to get that ball of yarn, but I never buy just one ball of yarn, so at the same time I ended up buying some Floatalopy as well, which was a very spontaneous buy, but you know, I had to justify the postage and everything, and then I was very close to free postage, so then I added yet another plate. Yeah, I ended up buying 5 plates. I needed 4 because I had a project in mind, and I'm gonna tell you about the project a little bit later. But then, you know, I got so close, I was contemplating what else to add. I didn't want to add another random skein of something, so I figured let me just add another plate of the Floatalopy. So yeah, I'll talk about that in a minute, but going back to the t-shirt, the construction again is made top down, and what happened with this one is I decided to cast on size 2 because again I looked at the measurements, it all worked out to be, so it was supposed to be fine for size 2, but I did gauge swatch and my gauge on the swatch was fine, and I was swatching in the round because I always keep that in mind. When I gauge swatch, I always swatch it in the same way as I was going to do the garment. But for some reason, as I started knitting, it just looked like something wasn't quite right. It felt like this sweater was growing, or this top was growing a little bit too quickly. So I checked my gauge and it turned out I was 2 stitches off. That's a lot. So basically it was going to be ginormous if I carried on. So what I decided to do is, I realized it while I was still increasing for the yoke, so it was fairly early in the day. And what I decided to do is I kept increasing as I did, but I decided to stop at the point where I had the same number of stitches as I would need to if I was knitting the smallest size. And then I proceeded for the rest of the pattern as if I was knitting the smallest size, or I was knitting the smallest size. What happened around the neckline though is that I ended up with a really big neckline, because if my gauge was off, obviously I had too many stitches around here, and that was really loose and really wide. So I was a little bit worried. And then also what happened is, because this is cotton yarn, it also started rolling, and it made me really worried that blocking this would never help really. So I actually washed this neckline when I was still knitting this t-shirt, and I was hoping that maybe blocking was going to help, but no, as it dried it was still rolling, because the neckline was just I think it's just a long tail cast on, and then you are either you're doing one round of knit and then you purl and then you knit for the rest of the body, or perhaps no, I think you are purling on the first row straight away. So you cast on and then you do one round of purl and then you are knitting the rest. So it's almost like you're creating a garter stitch edge, but because it's just one round of garter, it's never going to really keep it in shape. It's still going to roll. It's not enough. So it was rolling. So what I ended up doing, because you guys again helped me, I was asking for advice on Instagram, and you guys advised that I should try to do a slip stitch with a crochet hook. So that's what I did, and that's why I've got now the neckline very snug. Essentially, this was a really wide neckline, and I was thinking, yeah, what's going to happen? I mean, yes, I know this is going to make the neckline smaller, but how small can it be? Well, it can be quite small, because I was using a very small crochet hook, because I don't really have a wide selection of crochet hooks. I just grabbed whatever I had next to me, and I was thinking, well, this is thick yarn, so how tight can it get? It got really tight. I can barely get it through my head. And I think if you look closely, you can maybe even see a little bit of puckering here. this fabric is pulling a little bit. But again, it doesn't bother me that much. I can put it on, so that's great, and it's not choking me, so that's fine as well. If it's a little bit wavy here and there, it's fine. I can live with it. But yeah, that's a lesson learned. If I do a crochet edge around the neckline, I need to be a little bit more mindful of the crochet size hook that I use, or at least I have to have a little bit of a looser gauge. But either way, that saved this whole t-shirt, luckily. And yeah, and then the rest was just basically sailing through the pattern. Obviously I lost the yarn chicken at one point, but then I just got another ball and I carried on. And yeah, now I've got another summer top. So I'm very happy, and I also made use of my stash. Okay, fair enough, I had to buy that extra ball, but it's still a win because I got rid of a lot from my stash at the same time, so it's absolutely fine. I cannot remember from the top of my head how much yarn this has used. If I haven't updated my Ravelry page yet with the yardage and how many balls I used, I definitely will. Or by the time you're watching this, it might already be updated. So if you are curious, you can have a look at my Ravelry page. I think overall I ended up using something around 4.5 balls of the black one and maybe 3 balls of the grey. I don't know, I can't remember, but yeah, if you are curious, you can check. And yeah, I think that's it when it comes to this project. So now I am going to show you my whip. I'm not sure if you can call it a whip, but yeah, let me show you what I'm working on. Okay, I just looked at my notes and I realized that I have forgotten to mention one thing. So the construction of this top, it doesn't have any short row shaping or any kind of shaping around the neckline that you would kind of expect in a sweater construction, or at least that I would expect on a sweater construction, to raise the back of the sweater. So what I ended up with is the front and the back is identical. The pattern is telling you to do short row shaping, but on the bottom, like just before you start with the ribbing. And it just didn't make any sense to me. I mean, perhaps it's one of the ways you are designing a garment. Please do explain to me if this is supposed to somehow raise the back, because maybe I can't kind of imagine it, but in my head it didn't make sense. The way I envisaged this, if I was going to do it, it would make the back of the t-shirt a little bit longer, which is fine, because if this is the kind of look that you're after, then that's perfect, because sometimes it actually makes sense to make the back a little bit lower, you know, to I don't know, cover your bum a little bit. It's fine, like it's a feature to have the front shorter than the back, but I didn't really want to have that effect. So essentially, yeah, the front and the back of this t-shirt are absolutely identical, and I skipped those short rows. But I'm wondering if it was supposed to help the fit, because what you would normally expect would be short rows at the back of the neck. Or I have come across designs where you have a bit of short row shaping here, just at the back of the arms. That helps as well, but the bottom, just above the ribbing, I've never come across that. So yeah, if you know anything about that, then let me know, but I found it a little bit odd, so I decided to skip it. Right, yes, let's talk about what I'm currently doing. So this is what I'm currently working on. This isn't new, and I don't even know if you can call it a whip, because I am actually making a surgery on my Anker summer shirt top that I made last year. And I don't even know whether the word surgery is the right word here. All I did basically is I ripped the bottom and I am making the body longer. This t-shirt turned out to be way too short for me, and I have not been wearing it because I felt really uncomfortable. My belly just kept poking out and I just didn't like it. So even though I like the color, I like the fit overall, if you forget about the length. So it was just a shame that I wasn't really using it. So I decided to rip the bottom of this t-shirt and add a little bit of length. I still had some of this yarn left. This is the, I think it's called BC Garn Alino. And yeah, if you want to hear about this t-shirt, I am talking about this in one of my previous episodes sometime around summer last year. But essentially, yes, the reason why it ended up being too short, I made a conscious decision of knitting it shorter because I was expecting this to stretch. This is a linen and cotton blend, so I thought because it's got cotton in it, it was probably going to stretch, but perhaps linen kind of prevented it from stretching, or I don't know what it is. It just never stretched. It never became longer, and as a result, it was just way too short. So I'm adding length. Now, what I am slightly worried about, though, is that the bottom, you can really see where I am knitting, where I picked up. And of course, when you rip back, then you have a bit of a noodle effect on the yarn. So then once you start knitting, then it looks a little bit wonky. So I'm hoping that perhaps washing is going to help. But at the same time, when I look at it, I somehow feel like my gauge has changed. So I don't know how this is going to look after washing. I am literally about to bind off, so I'm doing the tubular bind off. I've got my needle here, so I have to be careful. This is going to be finished this evening. Probably by the time I release this video, it's already going to be finished. But yes, then I'm going to wash it, and I'm going to pray that this situation is going to be sorted out, because if not, that's a bit of a shame. I don't want to have that difference in fabric. So perhaps I need to change the needle size, go a size down, and just, yeah, try to make the fabric a little bit tighter. I don't know, it's a little bit annoying. This is the first time I'm actually doing something like this to a sweater. I very rarely rip back my work. So I don't know if you have any experience in this, let me know. But that's what's happening right now. I don't really have anything actively on my needles as in a new project. I have a pair of socks on the go. I have lost my sock knitting mojo a long time ago. And I was trying to kind of bring it back. So I cast on a pair of socks. It wasn't any particular pattern. I was making this up as I went. I really wanted to have a pair of shorties for summer. I think I casted this on, I don't know, might have been April. And I'm still not done. They are shorties. I just finished the first sock a few weeks ago, and I just cannot bring myself to casting on the second one. Probably by the time I'm done with these socks, the winter will come, and I'm not even going to wear them because I don't wear shorties in winter. But yeah, I don't know what it is. I just cannot find it in me to knit socks anymore. It's really bizarre. But it's kind of on my needles. Maybe I'm going to pick it up at some point. So I guess that means it's time for planning. Now that I'm going to finally bind off this t-shirt that I am fixing, I will be able to cast on a new project. So what I would like to cast on next is I would like to knit a cardigan. So a while ago I have purchased a pattern by Yarn Flakes. It's called Lenore, and it's a simple cardigan, a V-shape neck cardigan with a little bit of color work around the waist. And I found this really, really, really lovely. When this pattern came out, it was very soon after, I think, I finished knitting my, oh, what's it called? I can't remember the name of the pattern. I'm going to put that on the screen, and I'm going to show you the picture of that finished object. And essentially what I'm trying to say is I finished that cardigan at that time, and I was so much in love with it. And I am wearing this cardigan so much it's my most worn knitted item ever, that I just needed another cardigan in a similar shape. I figured that when I wear cardigans, I tend to wear them opened anyway. And when I wear a cardigan opened, if you have a V-neck shaped neckline, at least on my body shape, it just sits nicer. If I have a rounded yoke neckline on a cardigan and I wear it open, then the top is flapping about and it kind of annoys me and it just never really sits the way I want it to sit. So I am a little bit more drawn towards the V-neck shaped cardigans. So this one looks perfectly. And I like this interest around the colorwork section around the waistline. I think it's amazing for little scraps, so I am very excited to dive into my stash, see what I have. Maybe I will use some of the samples of my Handspun yarn as the contrasting color. As the main color, I will be using, so I've got a swatch here. I will be using, this is Drops Flora. I think it's an alpaca and wool blend, and I think it's a similar fiber blend to the original yarn that was used in the sample. I can't remember, but it just made sense for me to knit with it. I am off by 1 stitch, so I can't be bothered to swatch again with the smaller needle size, but I think I'm just going to cast on with, I'm going to go down a size with the needle and then I'm going to cast on and see what happens. Should be alright. Yeah, what else about the pattern? What I liked about it as well is that Audrey provides you with the chart that you can color yourself, which is great, because then I am a very visual person and sometimes I struggle to see the image, or if I think about colors, I can't sort of imagine them, how they would look together. So it really makes sense just to take some crayons and just color in that chart yourself. And then you can play around and experiment. You know, I have a lot of yarn in my stash. When I put it together, it somehow makes sense. But then when I start knitting, does it really gonna work? I struggle to envisage that. So I can use the crayons of the colors of my yarn and just color it in myself and see what it looks like. So I'm going to be playing around with that, and I'm going to be deciding on the contrasting colors. And the final thing about this project as well is that it is a steeked cardigan. So this is going to be my first venture into steeking, which is a bit scary but also very exciting, because yeah, I'm just going to try something new. We shall see if I'm going to be the first person in the history of knitting who's going to fail at steeking. I wouldn't be surprised. But I will definitely let you know what happens. But it is going to take a while, because obviously steeking happens at the very end. So first I need to knit this garment. And after that, I would like to I would like to use the Plötulopi that I purchased. The Plötulopi I have purchased with a very specific pattern in mind, and it's the Wild Posy by Melody Hoffman. The moment it came out, I really wanted to knit it. I have seen Nikki from the Knitting with Cat Hair podcast, and her version was so beautiful. She was knitting with Nutiden yarn, but I mean, they are fairly similar yarns. They are unspun. They are unspun yarns, and I think you can very easily substitute one for another. The original sample that Melody knitted, I think it was actually calling for Plötulopi. So I made a swatch of my yarn that I got. This color is called Oatmeal, and it's just this grayish beigey color, which I think is beautiful. Plötulopi, they have loads of different colors. Perhaps some of them were much nicer than this, but loads of the colors were actually out of stock at this point, so I just went for what they had, and this seemed like a good choice and I'm happy with it. It's a lovely yarn. So this is my little swatch that I made. I am bang on the gauge, 15 stitches. I'm ready to go. But because I'm a monogamous knitter, this is happening first. The cardigan is happening first because I need a cardigan more. I have so many sweaters, but I don't have enough cardigans, and I tend to wear cardigans a bit more, at least at this time of the year when you know, it's really hot. Sometimes you would sit in the garden in the evening and it would get just a little bit chilly. It just makes sense to throw a cardigan over your shoulders. So I just want to have one more to choose from. But that's going to happen right after that, because I'm really excited about it. It was very exciting to knit with this yarn. Yeah. So those are all of my knitting plans. I have one more plan, which probably will happen after Wild Posy or maybe even later, but that is connected to my handspun yarn. So I'm going to talk about that in a minute, because now we're going to move on to the hand spinning, yarn spinning section. So in my previous episode, I was showing you my little adventure of cleaning the Ryland fiber that I had in my stash. And then I was showing you how I dyed it and some of the samples that I made after dyeing and spinning this fiber. I think I showed you the purple yarn, which was like a finished skein. That yarn is no longer with me. I gave it away to my friend Emily of the Emily Kate Made This podcast. She loved this yarn. I felt like it wasn't quite my color, and I knew it was going to stay in my stash for a very long time, so I thought I was just going to make her happy. So I sent that yarn her way. And then I was showing you the bat, the crazy bat that ended up creating this a bit of a muddy yarn. So after that, I was still left with one more of those crazy bats, and I wasn't really sure what to do with it. So in the end, what I decided is I took little pieces of this bat. I blended this with, at first I blended it with brown fiber. So it created a predominantly brown yarn with little speckles, I guess, of those different colors that I had in a bat. I'm going to show you the picture, but I also have this yarn in here with me. But it's wound up in a ball, so you're probably not going to really see much of the interest. So little speckles of blue and orange, but I felt like it wasn't interesting enough, so it's just this one little ball that I have now. But I decided not to carry on in this direction. So then what I decided to do, I did exactly the same, but instead of blending it with brown, I was blending it with the natural color before dyeing. So this is what I ended up with. And that was the little sample then, which I spun into 2 singles and then just did a traditional 2-ply. This one, I think it was chain plied. Yeah, because that was just a small sample and I just wanted to get it off my wheel because I didn't really like the result. This one I liked more, so I decided to make 2 singles and then spun it together, and I love this color. It ended up being this very beige yarn with those little speckles or little variegation, however you want to call it, but it's got some interest to it. While I was spinning this, if any kind of colorful neps came along, I actually embraced them and I didn't want to get rid of them. I was even almost trying to create more neps, but it's more difficult than I thought in a way. Yeah, I wish I had more of those here, but it's still a very lovely yarn. So I decided to carry on with this, and then I spun like this bigger skein. So this is the second one, and they end up looking slightly differently because it is almost impossible to create identical yarn in terms of color when you're blending things on the carder. So the small one, it seems to have a little bit more beige and brown, whereas the bigger one seems to have a little bit more blue and orange, so you can see the difference, I guess, between them. I mean, the light here, as usual, is a bit rubbish, so I'm not sure if you can see it, but yes, there is a difference. And I believe that if I spin another of those, because I would like to have a few more skeins like this, I will carry on with this idea. I'm pretty sure that the next skein that I spin is going to be yet slightly differently. And it made me wonder what I'm going to do with it, because if I was going to knit just the regular stockinette plain sweater, you would really see the difference between the skeins, and I cannot be bothered to alternate the skeins. I just don't want to do it. So I was wondering what kind of project I could use this in. And I figured that actually I think what I would like to do is to use this as the background main color in a shifty sweater. I have made shifty before. It was a very, very fun and quick knit. I loved it, so I wouldn't mind to do it again. But yeah, because there is so much going on with this design anyway, I think like even if I have those skeins looking just slightly different to one another, it's not like it's going to be so much in your face and you're going to notice that difference anyway. And yeah, and that made me want to spin the contrasting color or colors for the shifty sweater. Yeah, so I'm going to use this Handspun yarn and I'm going to spin more for the contrasting colors. So another fully Handspun sweater is on the books. I just don't know when I'm going to do it. So I've been spinning this fairly recently. Oh, sorry, flies. And yeah, so I've been spinning this, but I kind of lost interest. And then I also, for some reason, I made this decision in my head that first I want to process all of the fibers, so all the Rayland fiber that I have. First I want to wash it, then I want to card it, then I want to blend it, and then I want to spin it. So I don't want to break it into those little activities, like, as in like, I don't want to be like just blending a little bit and then spinning a little bit and then I'm going to wash it a bit more again, a bit of blending, a little bit of spinning. No, like I want to do it all like in one after another. I struggle to explain it, but I hope you know what I mean. Essentially, what happens now is that I still have this bag with the raw fleece that I need to clean, and for some reason I couldn't get round to cleaning it. So I did a bit of blending, no, I did a bit of carding, so whatever I had that was washed, I have carded, but now I want to wash the rest of the fiber, card it, blend with colors that I still have, and then I'm going to spin. Wow, this just turned out to be way complicated. Like, yeah, I overcomplicated it. I actually have those bats behind me. They're here. There they are. So you've got the color, you've got the plain ones, which are not dyed, so they will be used as the base. And then I've got the color, the dyed ones. So those were the ones that I dyed in a fleece, and then I just decided to card them as separate colors. So you've got the orange one, you've got the blue one. This one was supposed to be blue, but it some of the yellow sneaked in and it was really difficult to divide them. Actually, let me just show you that one because it just looked so interesting. I actually got them all, but I really wanted to show you this one. Because when I look at this color and the swirl, doesn't it remind you of the Van Gogh's Starry Night painting? A little bit. I don't know, it's got something about it. But anyway, this is the blue bat, or green, whatever you want to call that color. And this is the orange one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the undyed fiber, I'm going to put it on the carder, and then I'm going to take out little pieces of this color to blend with the undyed fiber, and I'm going to end up with this, or something very similar to this, because that's how this was created. And then yeah, hopefully I have enough to knit a shifty sweater. What I have on my wheel right now is, well, actually let me show you something that I've had on my wheel for a very long time. So this has been sitting on, well, not quite on my wheel because I was spinning in the meantime, but I have spun this for a while and then I got incredibly bored. So I actually added a little bit of length to the singles lately, and that's what it looks like. I think I was showing this to you before. This is like cinnamon color, this earthy brown, lovely fiber from EweKnit. Is it EweKnit? Yeah, I think it was EweKnit. I got it last year. They had a promotion. I think they had 4 wool tops, each of them 200 grams, for £15. So you're getting 800 grams of wool for £15. That was a bargain. I think this color is called Autumn Leaf, and it's gorgeous. I wish I could finish this because I am really looking forward to the finished yarn, but spinning it is so incredibly boring for me because there is nothing interesting about the color. Like, the color is gorgeous, but because there is no variegation, it's a solid color, so it's boring. And also there is nothing exciting about the fiber itself because it's 100% merino. I've worked with merino before, so there is nothing interesting and exciting. I know how it spins, I know how the final yarn is going to turn out. I'm not using any new technique for spinning. It's just the normal, you know, my default yarn. It's going to be a 2-ply because that's how I divided the fiber. So it's incredibly boring. So I'm trying to power through it, but every now and again I need to take a break. So I took it off the wheel now. I mean, I could potentially put more fiber on it, but I don't think I want to. I've realized that when I make the bobbin really heavy, it's really difficult to straddle, so I don't want to have anything overly heavy. So what I have on my wheel right now is I'm spinning this. So let me just show you the color first. So this is the colorway is called Fireside, and this is fiber from World of Wool. I'm not entirely sure what's the fiber content. I think it definitely has nylon in it, so essentially I'm spinning for socks. And I think it says superwash wool. So it's some kind of mysterious wool, or maybe it's merino. I think it's just said superwash wool, which was slightly surprising because they are usually very good at telling you what kind of fiber content their wool tops have. But I think this one was just saying superwash wool. The reason why I'm confused is because I got a whole box of wool tops from World of Wool. My employer basically wanted to reward some of us for the hard work that we've been doing for the last few months, which has been really agonizing, and I've been so stressed out. And they wanted to reward us, so they wanted to give us a voucher. And normally you would expect an Amazon voucher, which is great. I mean, I use Amazon, so I would always find something for myself. But my manager said, well, is there maybe any particular place that you would like the voucher from? Because we would like to make it a little bit more personal or make you a bit more happy. So then that was like, of course, you know, I mean, Amazon is great, but they don't sell wool. So I started to wonder, I was trying to decide whether I wanted a voucher from Wool Warehouse or whether I wanted a voucher from World of Wool. And I decided to stick with World of Wool because I have quite a lot of stash when it comes to wool or yarn. So there was no need for me to make it any bigger, and I'm really into spinning right now, so I just wanted to add a little bit to my wool top stash. So I got loads. When I got that voucher in my mailbox, I was browsing their website for like 2 hours. I couldn't make up my mind. I was putting things in, taking them out. I was like a child in the candy store. It was like I couldn't make up my mind, but in a good way. Like, it was just so exciting. So it was like a proper shopping spree. And yeah, I ended up buying loads, and I have loads of interesting fiber, loads of lovely colors. I got disappointed only with one of my choices, because in this whole craziness of choosing wool tops, I didn't realize that I picked one that had stellina in it, which was a bit disappointing because I don't like shiny stuff, so I don't think I'm gonna spin with it. I will maybe just keep it in my stash for a while and then do like a fiber swap or something. But the rest, yeah, I was very happy with what I got. I got some unusual fiber as well. I got some fiber or wool top where one of the fibers was actually pineapple. I've never spun with pineapple, so that's gonna be new. Have you guys ever spun with pineapple? I think there is one where I have, oh, is it called seashell? No, seashell? Oh god, I can't remember what it was called. I've never heard of that. When I started Googling it, it turns out there is actually some commercially spun yarn with this fiber in it, so it is a thing, but I've never heard of it, and I definitely never spun with it. And I got some bamboo as well because I was curious to know how that spins. And then I got some different sheep breeds as well, here and there, I think. Lots of merino. I was very much drawn to color when I was choosing as well, so I got some interesting wool blends in terms of color. So I'm very excited about my spinning, but this is happening first. So as I say, I'm spinning for socks. I'm really hoping that if I finish this yarn, it will bring my sock knitting mojo back. But yeah, this is going to be a 3-ply. I am still yet to decide whether it's going to be a traditional 3-ply or whether I want to do the opposing 3-ply again. I've done that before. It was a bit of a nightmare when it came to the process, but maybe now that I got my lessons, maybe it wouldn't be so bad. The socks that I spun in the opposing 3-ply, they last so incredibly well. There is absolutely zero pilling, zero, and it's merino. So I think it really is good. But on the other hand, I've never done a traditional 3-ply sock spin, so maybe it would be a good one to compare how they wear. Either way, I'm putting quite a lot of twist onto this onto these singles, and I'm intending either way to do a lot of twist on the plying process. But yeah, I still have time to decide how I want to spin the third bobbin. So if I was to do the opposing 3-ply, then it means that 2 of the singles would be spun in the Z direction, but the third one will be spun in the S direction. So this is the first one. The second one is like, I kind of just started really with the second one, so I still have time to decide on the third. I think that's all I wanted to say about my spinning for today. So I talked about my knitting, I talked about my spinning, I will talk about sewing. I've been talking for a long time, so this is going to be a long episode, but hey ho, I can't record that often, so when I do get around to recording, I just have a lot of stuff. So let me put on my dress to show you my sewing now. Guys, I have a dress. There it is. I am so incredibly proud of myself, I cannot even explain. I thought it was never going to happen, and so many things have gone wrong. There are so many things that are wrong with this dress that I probably will not remember them all to tell you what happened. I will try. But overall, it actually fits. I mean, almost. But the problems that it has don't prevent me from wearing this, so it's actually okay. And I'm just, clearly I cannot find words to describe how happy I am. Anyway, let's start with what this pattern is. So this is a summer sundress that you can find in the Peppermint magazine. I think I was showing you this design before. I was thinking about sewing this pattern. Some of you said it's too much, so you guys were trying to put some sense into my head, but I clearly didn't listen. and I should have, because it was really difficult to sew. I mean, I am a novice sewer, okay, so I make loads of mistakes, and I should probably focus on the difficulty level when I'm choosing patterns, but I am very much drawn by what I see, like what I like. And this is how I ended up sewing this, and I think only after I finished I realized this difficulty level, I think it's intermediate. So I am shocked that I actually managed to finish, but let's talk about everything that went wrong. Some of these things you can probably already see, some of these you cannot see because it's on the inside, it's on the lining. So the lining, some of the, what's it called? See, the sewing vocabulary, that's a bit of a new vocabulary for me. So what is it called? Shall I just show it to you? Yeah, seams, they're called seams, I think. So the seams, they should be, the raw edges should be on the inside, obviously, but some of the lining, the raw edges are actually on the outside. Some of them are inside, some of them are outside. I struggle with like spacious thinking when it comes to sewing, which is absolutely surprising for me, because I always thought I was really good at like spatial thinking. Back at school, we would have those lessons. I don't know what they're called in English, like what's the equivalent of like the English classes, but in the Polish school they would be called technical classes or something like that. So they would teach you like loads of technical things or loads of manual things that you would do in those classes, and one of the things that they would teach us was drawing like 3D objects. So you would have an image of, say, like a 3D cube that would have a funny shape, and then you were supposed to make a drawing of each side of this cube as if you were looking at it from like a bird's view. I am pretty sure there is like a professional name to what I'm just trying to explain, but I just don't know what it's called, but I'm sure you know what I mean. So it's almost like you have to rotate this 3D cube in your head to be able to draw it just from one angle, and I was absolutely good at it. Like I loved it and I was good at it. I'm good at reading maps. So give me a paper map, I will get you to where you need to get, and I'm not going to be turning around the map. I can turn it in my head. And yet I cannot turn around a sewing piece that's right in front of me on my table, and I can't imagine how it's supposed to be put together so that I've got left things on the left and right things on the right. It's a mystery, okay? I don't know what's wrong with my brain, but it really struggles when it comes to sewing. Anyway, so I ended up with some raw edges inside of my lining. Another thing that happened is essentially I think I stretched the neckline, so it doesn't sit very nicely on my body. Like, I mean, it depends how I pull it. Like if I pull it down a little bit, it sits better, but like if I sit, it tends to like do all sorts of weird folding stuff. It was even worse when I finished sewing, but I decided to shorten the straps here, or the armholes. I did not do it in a very professional way, or like it was supposed to be done. What I did, I just folded these like that, and then I just ran a sewing machine through them like this, so you can clearly see where it was done, because it just looks rubbish. So it's here. Right? That's not how you're supposed to do it, but I just want it to be done. I must say that towards the end of this project, it was agonizing, and I just wanted this to be finished. I just wanted to finally wear it. I have lost all interest in sewing, all pleasure of sewing was gone by that point. I just wanted it to be done. So that's why I did it. As a result, it sits a little bit better here than it did, but the armholes are a little bit tight. And also because I probably didn't cut the pieces correctly, this whole dress didn't sort of line up properly. So as I was putting the zip in, each piece was kind of not nicely aligned. So I had to even everything out to have like a nice even edge for putting the zip in. So because of that, because I was cutting stuff out from here, this side, it actually has slightly less fabric. So as a result, it's also tighter. You're probably sitting here thinking, what are you doing? Like, how dumb are you? But it made sense to me at that time. And I'm still wearing it and it still kind of fits. It's just maybe a little bit tighter than it was supposed to be. But yeah, I just really want it to be done. The zip. It was supposed to be invisible zip. Clearly it's not invisible at all, because you can see it. But hey, I've got pockets and they're working. And they're not on the outside of the garment like I did before with my shorts, which I never finished. So yeah, what else? The front of the dress, so you've got a gathered skirt here. I am actually quite happy with how it looks. So, but I had to unpick it and redo it, because when I did it for the first time, I ended up with a really weird pleat, and it was just like one massive pleat. I thought I was doing the gathering and everything was working out fine, but as I started sewing, things started moving and I just ended up with one massive pleat. So it looks a little bit like, it looked a bit like this or like that. And here it was like straight. So it was really bothering me. Like I can live with a lot of imperfection in my sewing and in my knitting, but that was a little bit too much. So I had to unpick and redo it. And I think I ended up doing it pretty well, because it's pretty well spaced out. It's not perfect still. I feel like I still have a bit more gathers here than on this side. I feel like I'm missing stuff here. But honestly, this is my second sewn garment, so I think it's pretty good anyway. So that's that. What else happened? I'm pretty sure that there was more. I just can't remember. What I ended up as well doing is I made this dress a little bit shorter than in the original pattern. But that's something that's very easy to modify. You just chop the piece to the length that you want, and that's it. So yeah, I'm super happy. I am quite happy with my fabric choice as well, because there is a lot going on, so it's very forgiving. I think you can't really see all those mistakes that I've made. I mean, probably you can, some of them, but like they're not so much in your face as if this was a different fabric. But yeah, I've lost a little bit of my sewing mojo after that, because it was, like I say, it was agonizing. I felt this pressure that I really wanted to finish this in one go, because I don't have a craft room. I have to do it in my kitchen, on our kitchen table, and then I would spread all the pieces in the kitchen floor, and then you can't use the kitchen. So I was doing it on the Saturday. My partner was at work that Saturday, so I felt like, okay, I've got a day off, I've got a whole day, I'm just gonna do it. And I started, I think, around 10 in the morning. I had maybe like a 20-minute lunch break, and I think I finished at 6 or 7. It was just so many hours of sewing. I felt completely exhausted, and by that time I was just hating it. So I just completely killed this whole pleasure of sewing. So I need to find a different way for me to plan this when I am making garments, because I need to spread it across a few days. I cannot just do it in one sit, because that's just too much. So I think I'm just gonna have to plan it. Again, I was talking about this a little bit with Emily, of the Emily Kate Made This podcast, and she said she tends to... No, I think she said it. She tends to do the same thing. So it's her friend, I think, who said that she spreads it across different days, so on a different day she will do something different, and it makes sense. So like on the first day you would just cut the pieces or put the pieces together. You know, when you print a PDF version of a pattern, you've got like 24, 26, I don't know how many pages that you have to put together. That takes many hours. Then you have to cut the pieces, then you have to cut the fabric. So I think all of these can be done on separate days. And then say if I was to make a dress, I would maybe make only the bodice one day, then do the rest, or the next stage, say the next weekend or whatever. It is a bit of a nuisance because every time I have to like take all those pieces out, I have to take my machine, sewing machine out. So it is a bit of a faff, but I can't see myself doing this in one go again for a whole day. Like, it's just not a pleasure, not a pleasurable experience anymore. So that was a little bit too much. But it was worth it because I'm happy with my dress. I am so proud of it. I've been wearing it a lot, and I think one of the reasons why I really wanted to rush with finishing it is because, you know, we're in the middle of summer. I didn't want this to wait forever because we never know how long a summer will last in the UK. So I really wanted to make the most of this dress. But we've been very lucky with beautiful summer this year. So I am wearing it a lot. And I finished this a few weeks ago. So I think maybe my sewing mojo is slowly coming back. So perhaps I might start looking at sewing patterns again. Who knows? But for sure, when I start sewing again, if I make something, I am definitely going to share it with you. I am very grateful for all your encouragement because you guys have been really encouraging me. And it was so nice to see that some of you felt inspired because some of you are very novice sewers, or you are about to get on the journey of sewing and you felt a little bit inspired by my adventures. So that was very, very lovely to read your comments. But yeah. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up here. That's all I had to share with you today. I probably forgot about stuff as usual, but yeah. I'm going to try to be a little bit better with Instagram. I have been very quiet over there. I've not been posting much. I'm just really rubbish at finding time to take pictures. I think maybe because my picture taking skills are pretty bad. So I feel a bit discouraged from using Instagram lately. But yeah, if I'm going to try to put more updates into my stories just to kind of keep you guys in the loop of what I'm doing, what I'm up to in terms of my knitting, spinning and sewing. So yeah, if you guys want to reach me on Instagram, I'm there as Magda Knits with double S, and I'm also using the same name on Ravelry if you want to say hi. I'm quite active on Ravelry, not so much on the groups or forums, but yeah, if you want to send me a private message, I will definitely see it. So thank you so much guys for watching. If you survived till the end, if you watched it all, thank you so much. It's really lovely to see the channel growing, and I'm so happy that you guys are enjoying my videos. So I hope to see you next time, and have a good day, have a good evening, have a good night, whatever time of the day it is where you are, and I will see you next time. Bye!